A new voice, a new direction, RFK Jr. and public health. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has long been a prominent figure in American public life. He is an environmental lawyer and activist. Many know him for his work challenging corporate pollution. More recently, he has become a vocal critic of certain public health policies. His focus has increasingly turned towards vaccine safety and regulatory oversight. This background shaped his approach when he became the Secretary of Health and Human Services. His appointment signaled a potential shift in the department's direction. Many observers anticipated changes in how public health issues would be addressed under his leadership. Given his history of questioning established norms, Kennedy's general approach to public health often involves deep skepticism. He frequently questions the motives and findings of pharmaceutical companies. He also scrutinizes the actions of regulatory agencies like the Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. He has consistently advocated for greater transparency in medical research. He also calls for more rigorous and long-term safety testing for all medical interventions, especially vaccines. This perspective has garnered both support from those who feel their concerns have been ignored and criticism from many within the established medical and scientific communities who view his stance as potentially undermining public trust in proven health measures. The appointment of RFK Jr. as HHS Secretary was met with varied reactions across the nation. Supporters viewed it as a positive development. They hoped he would bring a fresh, critical eye to an agency they felt was too closely aligned with industry interests. They anticipated he would champion policies prioritizing individual health freedom and more thorough investigation into vaccine safety. Conversely, many public health experts and medical professionals expressed significant concern. They worried that his past statements and skepticism towards vaccines could erode public confidence in essential immunization programs. This division highlighted the contentious nature of vaccine discussions in contemporary society. Leading up to Secretary Kennedy's tenure, the public health landscape was still navigating the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. Debates over vaccine mandates, efficacy, and long-term effects continued to simmer. The pandemic had exposed deep fissures in public trust and highlighted the challenges of communicating complex scientific information. This environment meant that any significant policy change regarding vaccines would inevitably attract intense scrutiny. The ongoing discourse around COVID-19 management strategies provided a charged backdrop for the new administration's health policies. His leadership was thus poised to make a significant impact on these ongoing conversations. On May 28, 2025, a significant policy change was announced. Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. declared that the Department of Health and Human Services would alter its COVID-19 vaccine recommendations. Specifically, HHS would no longer universally recommend the vaccine for healthy children. It also revised its guidance for pregnant women. This announcement marked a departure from previous federal public health advice. It immediately became a subject of intense discussion among healthcare providers, parents, and policymakers. The decision was framed as a move towards a more individualized approach to vaccination, particularly for these demographic groups. The term healthy children, as used in the announcement, refers to individuals under 18 years of age. These children do not have pre-existing medical conditions that would place them at a higher risk of severe outcomes from a COVID-19 infection. For pregnant women, the revised recommendation applies to those experiencing uncomplicated pregnancies. The implication is that individuals within these categories might have a different risk-benefit calculation regarding the COVID-19 vaccine compared to the general adult population or those with underlying health issues. This distinction is crucial for understanding the scope and intent of the new HHS guidance, moving away from a one-size-fits-all approach. This new stance represents a notable shift from previous HHS recommendations. Under prior administrations, the COVID-19 vaccine was generally recommended for children aged 6 months and older. It was also recommended for pregnant women. Health authorities at the time emphasized the benefits of vaccination in preventing severe illness, hospitalization, and potential long-term complications from the virus. The CDC and other health organizations had consistently stated that the benefits outweighed potential risks for these groups. This change under Secretary Kennedy therefore signals a re-evaluation of that established consensus within HHS. The announcement specifically pertains to the range of COVID-19 vaccines that have received emergency use authorization or full approval in the United States. It is important to note that this change in recommendation does not constitute a ban on vaccinating healthy children or pregnant women. Instead, it signifies that the federal government's top health agency will no longer actively promote or advise routine vaccination for these specific populations. This subtle but significant policy adjustment is expected to influence how doctors advise patients and how parents make decisions regarding vaccination for their families, potentially leading to varied uptake rates. Secretary Kennedy articulated several reasons for this significant policy shift. The core of his rationale centered on a re-evaluation of the risk-benefit analysis for healthy children and pregnant women concerning COVID-19 vaccines. He expressed the view that for these specific groups, the potential risks associated with the vaccines might not be sufficiently offset by the benefits, especially as the pandemic evolves and newer, potentially milder variants of the virus become dominant. This perspective emphasizes caution, particularly when considering medical interventions for populations perceived to be at lower baseline risk from the disease itself. Regarding children, Secretary Kennedy highlighted data suggesting that healthy children generally experience milder forms of COVID-19 infection compared to adults or children with underlying health conditions. He also pointed to ongoing debates and concerns within some scientific circles about the potential for rare but serious side effects from mRNA vaccines in younger age groups, such as myocarditis, particularly in adolescent males. The argument presented was that for a healthy child, the statistical risk of a severe vaccine adverse event, however small, might be comparable to or even exceed the risk of severe complications from COVID-19 itself, prompting a more cautious approach. For pregnant women, the rationale for the revised recommendation also hinged on concerns about the available data. Secretary Kennedy suggested that while initial studies showed no immediate safety signals, comprehensive long-term data on the effects of COVID-19 vaccines on maternal health, fetal development, and infant outcomes are still being gathered and analyzed. He emphasized a precautionary principle, suggesting that until more definitive multi-generational studies are available, a more reserved stance on universal recommendation is warranted for pregnant individuals. This approach prioritizes minimizing any potential currently unknown risks during a critical developmental period for the fetus. A significant aspect of Secretary Kennedy's announcement was the emphasis on individual choice and the importance of informed consent. He stressed that the decision to vaccinate should ultimately remain a personal one. This decision, he argued, should be made in careful consultation with a trusted healthcare provider who can assess individual circumstances, risks, and benefits. The new HHS guidance is intended to support this individualized decision-making process rather than issue a blanket directive. This focus aligns with his broader advocacy for patient autonomy in healthcare decisions, particularly concerning preventative medical interventions like vaccinations. The scientific community has presented a range of perspectives on RFK Jr.'s decision. Some studies and analyses have indeed indicated that the absolute risk of severe COVID-19 in healthy children is low. These findings might be cited by those who support a more selective approach to pediatric vaccination. Furthermore, ongoing surveillance of vaccine adverse events continues, and discussions about the precise risk-benefit ratio for specific age cohorts are a normal part of scientific discourse. Some researchers might argue that as the virus mutates and overall population immunity increases, the calculus for vaccinating low-risk groups naturally shifts, warranting periodic reassessment of broad recommendations. Conversely, many major medical organizations and public health bodies have expressed strong disagreement with the new HHS stance. Organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists have historically supported COVID-19 vaccination for children and pregnant women. They cite extensive research and real-world data demonstrating the vaccine's safety and effectiveness in preventing severe disease, hospitalization, complications like multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children, and adverse pregnancy outcomes associated with COVID-19 infection. These groups often emphasize that even a small risk of severe disease is significant when it can be safely mitigated. Public reaction to Secretary Kennedy's announcement has been predictably divided. Groups that have long been skeptical of COVID-19 vaccines and government health mandates have largely welcomed the change. They view it as a validation of their concerns and a step towards greater medical freedom. Online forums and social media platforms saw an immediate surge in discussions supporting the decision. On the other hand, many individuals, particularly those who have followed previous public health guidance closely, and those within the mainstream medical community, have expressed alarm and confusion. They worry this will lead to lower vaccination rates and potentially increase the vulnerability of these populations. The potential impacts of this new recommendation are multifaceted and will likely unfold over time. It could lead to a decrease in COVID-19 vaccination rates among healthy children and pregnant women. This, in turn, might influence community transmission dynamics and the overall burden on the healthcare system depending on future pandemic waves or variant characteristics. The decision may also intensify the already polarized public debate surrounding vaccines. Furthermore, it could affect public trust in HHS and other health institutions, as conflicting messages can create uncertainty. Healthcare providers will now face the challenge of navigating these revised recommendations with their patients, ensuring informed discussions amidst a complex and often contentious information environment.